The light in the grand orrery of the consortium was a dying thing, a constellation of holographic stars caught in the slow, inexorable process of being snuffed out. One by one, systems on the far rim of the galactic chart flickered from vibrant sapphire to a dull, terminal crimson, and then to absolute, silent black. The delegates watched this erosion of their known universe from a circular dais of polished obsidian that seemed to float in the heart of the void-like chamber. Silence, heavy and ancient, was the true occupant of the hall, broken only by the faint, harmonic chimes that emanated from the crystalline form of matriarch Lyra of the Silthera. Her body, a lattice of living light and intricate, singing facets, pulsed with a rhythm of deep sorrow. Across from her, the hulking shape of High Justicar Valerius of the Cathar Imperium was a study in contained violence. His chitinous exoskeleton, the color of cooling magma, absorbed the dying light, and the rhythmic clicking of his secondary mandibles was a sound of profound impatience, a metronome counting down to a war he was desperate to wage. The silence spreads, Valerius's voice resonated, a low-frequency growl that vibrated through the very stone of the dais. Another system has gone dark. The Xylo's traverse is now a tomb. We have deliberated, we have observed, we have meditated. The time for such passive pursuits is over. The Cathar fleet is mustered. We must strike at the heart of this decay, cauterize the wound before the infection consumes us all. He gestured with a bladed forearm toward the encroaching darkness on the galactic map, a creeping void that seemed to have a hunger to it. There was nothing to strike asterisk at asterisk. That was the maddening, terrifying truth they had circled for cycles. The silence was not an armada, not an empire. It was an absence. Ships sent to investigate the darkened system simply vanished. Probes ceased transmitting. Light itself seemed to be unwritten from the fabric of reality. Matriarch Lyra's chimes softened, coalescing into a coherent melodic voice that flowed through the chamber like cool water. And where would you send your warships, High Justicar? What enemy would your cannons find? You speak of cauterizing a wound, but you cannot see the blade that inflicts it. We are facing a phenomenon beyond our comprehension, a force that does not conquer but erases. Her light form shimmered, casting long, wavering patterns across the polished floor. To send a fleet into that void is to gift them to oblivion. It is an act of fear, not strategy. Between them sat Chief Artificer Brock of the Grawl, a being of living silicon and granite, whose massive form was as still and patient as a mountain. His optical sensors, glowing circles of soft, analytical blue, were fixed on a small, isolated cluster of data points flickering near the edge of the latest system to fall dark. The matriarch is logically sound, Brock stated, his voice a gravelly cascade of tumbling stones. Our sensor arrays, even the deep-range quantum entanglement monitors, register nothing. No energy signatures, no gravitational anomalies, no subspace tearing. The cessation of existence in these systems is absolute. It is a fundamental violation of thermodynamics. It is impossible, and yet it occurs. Impossibilities are merely challenges the Cathar have yet to shatter, Valerius retorted, his mandibles clicking sharply. But there is one anomaly you fail to address, Artificer, one recurring phantom that haunts the edge of every dying system, the legend. A palpable tension entered the chamber, a coldness that had nothing to do with the simulated void around them. The ghost ship. For generations, it had been a tale told by astrogators in the lonely watches of the night, a flicker on a sensor array that was dismissed as a glitch, a shadow that passed between stars where no shadow should be. But as the silence began its inexorable march, the sightings had grown more frequent, more credible. A single, unidentified vessel, sleek and featureless, appearing just before a system winked out only to vanish as the last light died. It never hailed, it never responded, it only watched. A myth, Valerius spat, though his tone lacked conviction. A mass hallucination born of terror. The minds of lesser species buckle under the strain of the unknown and invent specters to populate the dark. It is no myth, Brock rumbled, his blue optics brightening. The Grawl do not traffic in superstition. My long-range observatories have confirmed its presence at the last 3 cessation events. We have spectral analysis, though it is baffling. The vessel's hull reflects no light, emits no energy. It is a perfect void, a sliver of absolute blackness that registers on our instruments only by the way it bends spacetime around it. It is there, it is real, and it is utterly alien to anything in our combined databases. Matriarch Lyra's form pulsed with a gentle, inquisitive light. And what is its purpose? It observes the death of worlds, a silent witness to galactic extinction. Is it a scavenger, a scholar, or is it the shepherd of this silence guiding it to its next victim? This was the question that coiled in the heart of every leader in the consortium. Was the ghost ship the cause or merely the herald, a predator or a lonely god of death? It is an unknown variable in a war for our very existence, Valerius declared, his massive form rising slightly from its seated position. And any unknown variable must be eliminated. My fleet will advance to the Perseus Veil, the next system in the Silence's path. If this phantom appears, we will engage it. We will force it to reveal its nature. If it is the source, we will destroy it. If it is a witness, we will tear its secrets from its silent hull. The Perseus Veil. Lyra's voice was a whisper of shimmering tones. That is the border of the sector quarantined around the species known as humans. Valerius made a dismissive gesture, a grating scrape of claw on stone. The recluses, the primitives, they sealed themselves behind their veil generations ago, refusing all contact, spurning consortium membership. They are of no consequence. A pre-spaceflight civilization that stumbled upon the ruins of a greater one and now hides in fear of the galaxy. Their world, Earth, is a footnote in the grand history of this galaxy. They will not be a factor. To underestimate any sentient species is a failure of imagination, High Justicar, Lyra cautioned. They have been silent for centuries, watching. We do not know what they have become in their isolation. Their veil is not a primitive barrier. It is a complex, self-repairing network of gravitational lenses and temporal sinks. Chief Artificer Brock's own people have conceded they cannot replicate it. Brock gave a slow, deliberate nod, a geological shifting of his massive shoulders. The matriarch is correct. The technology of the veil is paradoxical. It is elegant to the point of being almost organic, yet its power requirements should be stellar in scale. We have detected no such power source. The humans are a technological enigma. To dismiss them is illogical. Logic has its limits, Valerius countered, his voice lowering to a dangerous growl. Courage and will are what shape the fate of empires. The Cathar will advance. We will confront the ghost ship, and we will tear the truth from the heart of this silence, even if it means shattering a few reclusive primitives in the process. This council is concluded. He turned, his powerful form striding from the dais without awaiting dismissal, his shadow stretching long and sharp across the dying holographic stars. Matriarch Lyra and Chief Artificer Brock remained in the suffocating silence. The darkness on the map continued its silent creep, and the tiny, isolated light of the Perseus Veil seemed impossibly fragile, a single candle against a coming hurricane. Lyra's light softened to a deep, mournful violet. She was not afraid of the Cathar's arrogance or the silence's void. She was afraid of the question she had asked herself in the deepest cycles of her meditative trance. What if the ghost ship wasn't a predator or a scholar? What if it was a mourner, attending the funeral of the universe, one star at a time? And what terrible, lonely knowledge would a being who sought out such ceremonies possess? The chimes of her body fell into a somber dirge, a song for a galaxy that did not yet know it was already dead. The Cathar Imperium fleet was a magnificent and terrifying spectacle, a flotilla of obsidian blades hanging in the void before the Perseus Veil. Each warship was a testament to martial philosophy, all sharp angles, heavy armor and weapon emplacements that bristled with contained fury. At their heart was the asterisk will of Cathro's Asterisk, Valerius's flagship, a vessel so vast its shadow could eclipse a small moon. From its command throne, the High Justicar watched the shimmering, distorted space that marked the edge of human territory. His fleet was a declaration of power, an argument made in tungsten and plasma, and it was an argument he believed to be unanswerable. They had arrived at the predicted intersection point, the place where the silence would next manifest, and they would wait. They would be the wall against the night. Days passed. The tension on the bridge of the asterisk will of Cathro's Asterisk was a physical pressure. The Cathar, a species evolved for combat and decisive action, were ill-suited for the patient stillness of a vigil. Valerius felt it in the subtle clenching of his own limbs, the grating of his mandibles. His officers stood at their stations, their multifaceted eyes fixed on the serene, shimmering curtain of the veil and the empty void beyond. They were warriors waiting for a battle, and the silence was a far more unnerving foe than any armada. "Status report," Valerius commanded, his voice a low crackle over the bridge's internal co. "No change, High Justicar," came the crisp reply from his tactical officer. "The veil remains stable, no energy readings from within. The sector beyond is quiet, no sign of the anomaly." Valerius stared into the void. This was the part of command he despised, the waiting, the uncertainty. It felt like weakness. He had brought the fist of the Imperium to this sector to strike a blow, and there was nothing to hit. The universe was mocking him with its emptiness. His gaze drifted to the veil. The humans, were they cowering behind their wall oblivious? Or were they watching his fleet with their unknowable technology, judging, perhaps even laughing at this grand display of useless force? The thought was infuriating. It was on the 7th cycle of their vigil that it happened. not with a grand arrival or a terrifying burst of energy, but with a subtle, chilling wrongness. One moment space was empty. The next it was there, the ghost ship. It had not warped in, it had not dropped from subspace. It had simply arrived, as if it had been there all along and had only just decided to be seen. It was precisely as Brock's data had suggested, a sliver of absolute non-reflective black shaped like a smooth, elongated teardrop. It had no visible bridge, no windows, no weapon ports, no engine glow. It was a hole in reality, a cutout in the starfield. It hung motionless between the Cathar fleet and the Perseus Veil, a silent, obsidian sentinel. Anomaly detected. The tactical officer shouted, his voice tight with shock. It matches the profile of the target vessel. All energy readings are null. Space-time displacement is off the scale. High Justicar, I cannot quantify it. The bridge crew of the Asterisk Will of Cathros Asterisk stared, their warrior instincts screaming at the sheer alienness of the vessel. It didn't feel like a ship. It felt like an omen. "Hail it," Valerius ordered, his voice a low, steady growl that betrayed none of the cold dread coiling in his gut. "All frequencies, all languages in the consortium database. Identify yourself." Silence. The ghost ship floated, impassive, immense, and utterly unresponsive. The Cathar hailed it again and again. They bathed it in sensor sweeps which returned only baffling, paradoxical data. The ship's mass was immense, far greater than its size should allow, yet it exerted no gravitational pull. It was a contradiction made manifest. "High Justicar," his second-in-command murmured, stepping forward. "It makes no sense. Its presence violates known physics." "Then we will introduce it to our physics," Valerius declared, his patience shattering. The ship's silent arrogance was an insult to the power he had brought to bear. "Tactical, target the vessel's forward aspect. A warning shot, a single lance of focused plasma. Let us see if it remains so silent when it is burning." "Warning shot, aye," the officer confirmed, his claws flying across his console. The primary weapon capacitor of the Asterisk Will of Cathros began to whine, a rising shriek of caged energy that filled the bridge with a bone-jarring vibration. But before the order to fire could be given, something began to happen, not to the ghost ship, but to the space around it. The stars of the Perseus system, the next victim of the silence, began to waver. The light from its sun, a healthy yellow-white star, began to distort, its color shifting subtly toward the red end of the spectrum. A creeping dread, colder and more profound than the presence of the alien ship, washed over the bridge. "High Justicar, the system is degrading," the science officer cried out. "Quantum decay is accelerating. It's the silence. It's beginning." Valerius watched, his warrior's mind struggling to grasp the nature of this enemy. The light was dying. The very fabric of the universe was unraveling before his eyes. And the ghost ship just floated there, watching. Was it feeding on this decay? Was this its moment of triumph? Rage, pure and primal, surged through him. He would not allow it. "Fire!" he roared. The word had barely left his mandibles when the ghost ship finally acted. It did not move. It did not raise shields. It did not power weapons. Instead, a line of pure, incandescent white light, thinner than a needle yet brighter than a sun, erupted from its featureless hull. It was not a beam of energy in the way the Cathar understood it. It had no heat, no radiation. It was a line of pure information, of solidified, weaponized mathematics. It didn't travel to the star, it simply was asterisk, connecting the ship and the dying sun in an instantaneous, inviolable bond. The Cathar weapons officer flinched, his hand frozen above the firing stud. And then the ghost ship fired. The term was woefully inadequate. It was more like it sang asterisk. A wave of complex geometric patterns, woven from light and impossible energies, pulsed along the beam. They struck the star not with force, but with structure. The Cathar sensors screamed, unable to classify the phenom. Non, the light of the star, which had been dimming and reddening, stabilized. The quantum decay halted, then began to reverse. The intricate wave of energy from the ghost ship was not attacking the star. It was reinforcing it, knitting the very fabric of spacetime back together, holding back the encroaching void through a sheer, breathtaking application of physics so advanced it might as well have been magic. It was not a weapon firing. It was a surgeon's tool, a creator's instrument, performing cosmic-scale surgery on a dying reality. The bridge of the Asterisk Will of Cathros was utterly silent, save for the frantic, panicked chittering of its overwhelmed sensor arrays. Every Cathar warrior, from the lowest deckhand to the High Justicar himself, was frozen in a state of profound, world-shattering shock. They had come expecting to fight a ship. They had found something that could command the stars themselves. The silence, the inexorable, terrifying end of everything, was being held at bay by a single, silent vessel. Then, as the star's light returned to its healthy, stable glow, a new signal touched their ship. Not a hail, not a demand. It was a simple open communication channel appearing simultaneously on every console, every screen on every ship in the fleet. It bypassed all their firewalls, all their encryption, as if they were simply not there. And on that channel, a voice spoke. It was calm, measured, and carried a weight of ancient sorrow that seemed to echo the vast, cold emptiness between the stars. The language was perfect, unaccented Cathar, but the cadence was utterly alien. "This is Ambassador Eva Rostova of the human vessel Odyssey *, the voice said, as serene as a placid ocean. "High Justicar Valerius, we respectfully request that you stand down your fleet. You are witnessing a preservation effort. Your weapons are not needed here." The shock on the bridge was absolute. Valerius stared at the impossible ship, then at the restored star, his mind reeling. The ghost ship. The legend that haunted the end of worlds. It was human, and it was not an instrument of death, but of life. His entire worldview, built on the simple, brutal arithmetic of force and power, had just been rendered utterly, humiliatingly obsolete. The primitives from the Veil had just shown him a power beyond his most fevered imaginings, and they had done it without firing a single shot in anger. They had fired a miracle instead. Ambassador Eva Rostova's face materialized on the main view screen of the will of Cathro's *, not as a grainy transmission, but as a perfect, three-dimensional holographic projection that stood on the bridge as if she were physically present. She was small, fragile-looking by Cathar standards, her form lacking any natural armor, her features soft and expressive. Yet she possessed a stillness, a centered calm that commanded the attention of every warrior in the room more effectively than any show of force. Her eyes, a pale, piercing gray, held a depth that seemed to reflect the starfields behind her, and in them Valerius saw not aggression, not fear, but a profound and weary empathy. It was more unnerving than any threat. "High Justicar Valerius," she repeated, her voice the same serene, melodic tone from the transmission. "My name is Eva Rostova. I speak for the people of Earth. We have been watching your fleet's approach with concern." Valerius found his voice, the sound a harsh rasp in the stunned silence. "You are human. The ghost ship is a human vessel." The words felt absurd. The recluses, the footnote species, commanding a power that could defy the end of the universe. "Call her the Odyssey *, Rostova replied with a faint, sad smile. "And yes, she is one of ours. There are others. We have been busy." She gestured subtly toward the Perseus star, now shining with renewed vigor. "This is what we do. We do not fight the silence. We cannot. We merely delay it. We preserve what we can for as long as we can." The High Justicar's mind, trained for millennia of strategic thought based on conquest and threat assessment, struggled to process this. "Preserve, you have this power, a power to command reality itself. You could rule this galaxy. You could have stopped the silence before it ever claimed a single world. Why did you hide? Why did you watch in silence as trillions of lives were extinguished?" The accusation was raw, born of a lifetime of belief that power existed to be used, that strength was a moral imperative. Rostova's expression did not waver. The sadness in her eyes deepened. "Because we understand the burden of such power, High Justicar, and we understand its limits. We did not always. Humanity was once much like the Cathar. We saw the universe as a resource to be conquered, a wilderness to be tamed by the strength of our will. We nearly destroyed ourselves in our arrogance, turning our world into a graveyard of ambition. From those ashes, we learned a different way, a harder way. We learned to listen instead of command, to observe instead of interfere." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle into the tense atmosphere of the Cathar bridge. "We did not build the Odyssey to be a weapon. We built her to be a library, a lifeboat not for lives but for legacies. The silence, as you call it, is not an enemy. It is a natural process, a fundamental entropic decay of space-time, the end of the universe beginning ahead of its time. We do not know why it has accelerated, but we know it cannot be stopped with warships. Trying to fight it with plasma cannons is like trying to fight the concept of time with a sword. All you will accomplish is your own exhaustion." Valerius felt the foundations of his honor, his history, his entire civilization's ethos cracking beneath him. "So you do nothing, you simply attend the wake." "We do what is possible," Rostova corrected gently. "We cannot save the house from the fire. But we can run inside and carry out the paintings, the books, the memories. The Odyssey is an archive. When a system is about to be erased, we make a record. We copy the art, the music, the literature, the scientific knowledge, the complete genetic codex of every living thing from the most complex sentient being to the simplest microbe. We store the echo of a world, the ghost of a civilization, so that it is not lost to the void forever. The beam we fired was not a weapon. It was a stabilization field woven from the fundamental constants of this universe, designed to buy us more time to complete our work, to save the memory of Perseus. The revelation was staggering, its philosophical implications more devastating than any physical blow. The humans were not conquerors. They were galactic archivists, cosmic librarians tending to the final moments of existence. Their reclusiveness was not born of fear, but of a terrible, lonely duty. "I wish to speak with the rest of the consortium," Valerius stated, his voice now devoid of its earlier arrogance. It was a request, not a command. "The matriarch of the Silthera and the chief artificer of the Grawl must hear this." "They are already listening," Rostova said. Her holographic form flickered, and she was joined by the shimmering light form of matriarch Lyra and the stony, impassive figure of chief artificer Brock. They stood beside the human ambassador on the Cathar bridge, their own projections transmitted from their respective flagships miles away. A spontaneous council convened in the shadow of a miracle. Lyra's melodic voice was filled with a sense of profound resonance. "We have seen what your vessel did, Ambassador Rostova. We have felt the shift in the cosmic balance. It is a work of creation, not destruction. Your purpose, it is a sorrowful one, but it is noble beyond our reckoning." Brock's blue optics glowed with intense analytical light. "The technology required to manipulate spacetime at a quantum level with such precision is theoretically impossible. Your understanding of physics surpasses ours by an order of magnitude we cannot even calculate. Our models are incomplete. We are children playing with stones while you are shaping mountains." Rostova inclined her head, a gesture of respect to the ancient beings before her. "We had a harsh teacher, our own self-destruction. And we have had a long time to study in our isolation, but we can no longer remain isolated. The silence is accelerating, its progression is becoming more erratic. We can no longer keep pace. We require assistance." This was the last thing Valerius expected, a request for help from a civilization that could hold back the end of the universe. "What assistance could we possibly offer you?" he asked, the question heavy with genuine humility. "The Cathar are warriors," Rostova said, her gaze meeting his. "Your fleets are the most powerful in this quadrant. Your people are disciplined, courageous. We need you not to fight the silence, but to protect the Exodus. There are countless worlds in the path of the decay, worlds that have not yet ascended to spaceflight, worlds whose stories deserve to be saved. Our archival process takes time. Your ships can form a perimeter, a shield not against the silence but against the panic and chaos that will come when the truth is known. You can maintain order while we do our work. You can be the guardians of the memory." She then turned her projection to Lyra. "Matriarch, your people are the keepers of wisdom, of philosophy. You understand the soul of a culture. You can help us identify what is most essential to preserve, to see beyond the data and find the spirit of a species. You can guide our choices, ensuring our library is one of wisdom, not just information." Finally, she faced Brock. "Chief Artificer, your people are the galaxy's greatest engineers. The Asterisk Odyssey is a living vessel, a synthesis of biology and quantum engineering. She is old and she is strained. We need your help to maintain her systems, to build new archival conduits to improve the efficiency of our preservation matrix. We need you to help us build more lifeboats." It was a proposal of breathtaking scope. Not an alliance for war, but a coalition for preservation. A desperate, galaxy-spanning effort to save the memory of life from the encroaching, final dark. It offered the Cathar a new kind of honor, not in conquest, but in protection. It offered the Silthera a purpose for their wisdom, not in meditation, but in action. And it offered the Grawl the ultimate engineering challenge. Rostova made a final, simple gesture, an opening of her hands. "We cannot offer you victory. We cannot promise you survival. The universe will end. That is an immutable truth, but we can offer you a purpose, a chance for our combined civilizations not to simply vanish, but to leave a final, beautiful mark upon the tapestry of time, a library of echoes that will persist until the last flicker of light is gone. Will you help us?" Valerius looked at the human, then at the projections of his fellow consortium leaders. He saw the awe in Lyra's shimmering form, the intense focus in Brock's glowing eyes. He felt the gaze of his own bridge crew upon him, their entire martial culture poised on the precipice of a transformation. The path of the warrior had always been to fight the darkness, but the human was offering a new way, to become a lantern within it, to guard the flame even as the night fell. He lowered his head, a gesture of profound respect that no Cathar High Justicar had made to another species in 1,000 generations. "The Cathar Imperium accepts," he said, the words feeling heavier, more meaningful than any declaration of war he had ever uttered. "We will be your shield." The interior of the Odyssey was a cathedral to memory. Valerius, Lyra, and Brock walked beside Ambassador Rostova down corridors that were not built of metal, but seemed grown from a pearlescent living material that pulsed with a soft internal light. The air was still and cool, filled with the faint, ethereal hum of systems operating on principles far beyond their understanding. There were no crew members rushing about, no clanging of machinery. The ship felt less like a vessel and more like a sanctuary, a place of deep, contemplative silence. Rostova led them not to a bridge or an engine room, but to a vast, spherical chamber at the heart of the ship. They stood on a crystalline platform at its center, and all around them, in the boundless dark, floated countless points of light. "This is the Library of Echoes," Rostova said softly, her voice barely a whisper in the hallowed space. "Every point of light you see is a civilization we have archived, a world that has been lost to the silence." As she spoke, one of the lights drifted closer. It expanded, blossoming into a swirling, holographic sphere of breathtaking detail. Inside, Valerius could see the phantoms of a great city, elegant, soaring spires inhabited by graceful, winged beings. He heard the faint, ghostly strains of their music, saw fragments of their art, felt the shadow of their philosophies wash over him. It was a world the Cathar had known only as a designation, a system that had gone dark centuries ago. And here it was, its soul, its essence, perfectly preserved. Another light drifted forward, showing a world of aquatic scholars who built their society in the crushing depths of a methane sea. Another revealed a civilization of silicon-based geologists who sang to the tectonic plates of their planet. On and on it went, a cemetery of stars, a testament to the sheer, crushing scale of the loss the galaxy had suffered. Valerius felt the warrior's rage drain out of him, replaced by a grief so profound it threatened to shatter his hardened carapace. All the wars the Cathar had fought, all the empires they had built, all the honor they had won in battle, it all felt like the squabbles of children in a playground, ignorant of the rising tide that would soon consume them all. The Silthera matriarch's light pulsed with a deep, sorrowful color, her entire being weeping for the lost songs. Brock's optical sensors dimmed, as if the sheer volume of lost knowledge was too much for even his analytical mind to bear. "We have been doing this for a very long time," Rostova continued, her own face etched with the weary pain of her duty. "We are all that is left of them, their last will and testament, and now we will add the echoes of the consortium to this collection. The courage of the Cathar, the wisdom of the Silthera, the ingenuity of the Grawl, you will not be forgotten." In that moment a new alliance was forged, not by treaty or by threat, but by a shared, sacred purpose. The Cathar fleet, once a weapon of conquest, became a fleet of guardians. They established a moving cordon around the systems in the Silence's path, holding back opportunistic pirates and panicked refugees, creating a zone of calm where the human archival PS could work. The Grawl sent their finest engineers, who worked alongside the humans, marveling at the organic, symbiotic nature of their technology, slowly learning to coax and persuade the living systems of the Asterisk Odyssey rather than command them. The Silthera sent their lore keepers and philosophers, who communed with the human archivists, helping them to understand the deeper cultural currents of the species they were preserving, ensuring the soul was saved along with the data. It was a strange, melancholy, yet beautiful symbiosis, a civilization preparing for its own end with dignity and grace. Weeks turned into months. The joint effort worked with a somber efficiency. Several more worlds were archived, their essence stored safely within the glowing halls of the Asterisk Odyssey and her sister ships. A fragile sense of hope began to grow amidst the despair, not a hope for survival, but a hope for legacy. They could not win the war against oblivion, but they could choose the terms of their surrender. It was during a routine systems diagnostic, with Chief Artificer Brock overseeing a team of Grawl and human engineers deep within the Odyssey's Asterisk quantum processing core, that the true twist in their fate was revealed. They were attempting to recalibrate a deep-range neutrino sensor, a relic of the ship's ancient construction that had been dormant for millennia, used by humanity's ancestors for purposes long since forgotten. As they flooded the system with a trickle of power, something unexpected happened. An alarm, soft and almost musical, chimed through the core. It was a signal the ship's current crew had never heard before. Rostova, Valerius, and Lyra were summoned immediately. They gathered around a holographic display in the ship's quiet command center, watching as Brock and his team worked. "We are not certain," the Grawl artificer rumbled, his voice laced with a rare tone of excitement. "The system was designed as a passive listening array, searching for patterned signals on a transgalactic scale. It has been silent for as long as human records have existed, but it has just now detected something. A signal from where?" Rostova asked, her calm composure finally cracking with a sliver of bewildered curiosity. Brock manipulated the holographic controls. A map of their galaxy appeared, the creeping shadow of the Silence clearly visible. Then the map zoomed out, showing the vast, empty void between their galaxy and its distant neighbors. A single, pulsing red glyph appeared in that absolute emptiness. "From there," Brock said, The signal is faint, unimaginably ancient. It has been traveling for billions of years. But it is here, and it is not random. It is structured. It is artificial. A heavy, breathless silence descended upon the command center. Valerius stared at the glyph, his mind refusing to make the logical leap. But that is impossible. The silence has already consumed everything in that direction for millions of light years. There is nothing there. There is less than nothing. The signal is not coming from a galaxy, Rostova breathed, her eyes wide with dawning, terrifying comprehension as she analyzed the data streams. It's coming from beyond the silence. It originates from a point in spacetime that should no longer exist. The implications were shattering. The silence, the entropic decay they had accepted as the natural, final state of the universe, was not the end. It was a boundary, a curtain, and something on the other side of that curtain was broadcasting a message. The ancient human listening post, designed with a sensitivity that bordered on prescience, had picked up the faintest echo of that message, a ghost whispering across the graveyard of dead galaxies. "Can you translate it?" Lyra's chimes were a frantic, dissonant melody. "What is it saying?" "It is not a complex message," Brock reported, his stone fingers working with delicate precision. "It is a simple, repeating sequence, a mathematical prime, a carrier wave, and a coordinate. A single point in spacetime, located in the absolute center of the Great Void, where the silence is oldest and most complete. The four of them, Human, Cathar, Silthera, and Grawl, stood in stunned silence, staring at the simple, impossible message from beyond the end of their universe. For so long, their entire existence had been defined by looking back, by preserving the past against the coming of a final, absolute end. They had accepted their fate, their role as the universe's librarians, its mourners. But this signal changed everything. It was not an echo from the past. It was a call from a future they didn't know existed. The silence was not an ending. It was a wall, and for the first time they had discovered that there might be something on the other side. A new mystery, vaster and more profound than the one they had been facing, had just opened up before them. The fear of oblivion, which had been their constant companion, was suddenly replaced by a new, more potent emotion, a terrifying, electrifying surge of pure, unadulterated awe. They were not at the end of the book. They had merely reached the end of a chapter. Rostova looked at Valerius, her face a canvas of conflicting emotions, the sorrow of her long vigil warring with a sudden, brilliant spark of hope. The Cathar Justicar met her gaze, and for the first time he understood that the true nature of courage was not to fight the inevitable, but to face the unknown. The universe was not dying, it was changing. "It's not a tomb," Rostova whispered, her voice filled with a wonder that made her seem impossibly young and ancient all at once. She looked at the signal pulsing from the heart of the void, from the other side of reality itself. "It's not an ending, it's an invitation."